Here's my song. Let's sing it. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Come on, it's gonna be fucking awesome. You know the words. It's gonna be fucking awesome. That's it, sing. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Yeah!
Heidi ho, my fellow lovers of entertainment. It is I, Jesse Blaze Snider, the coolest geek alive. How are you doing? I'm doing great, despite terrible things going on out in LA with the fires. I've got a lot of friends who've lost their homes. I'm working on a fundraising event with some friends of mine, and we're just, having a little bit of trouble right now. I think we lost our venue, but we have a lot of United Way and people trying to work on this thing with us. So if you're anybody out there and you would want to help with an effort to help help the people directly, that's what really our goal. We're trying to really press United Way to the coals to make sure that the hold on one second, my levels are off. All right, that should be better. I normalized the rest of it, so I should be loud at the beginning now. Forgive me. If you wanted to volunteer in any way, shape, or form, we're going to need people to help us publicize this. We've got my reach, what it is right now, but also, my reach is to get more people to help us get more reach, and we're working on. We have a few lines out to some people. Like I'm waiting to hear from Dexter Holland. Fingers crossed. My information got passed on to him, but he might be involved in something else. Who knows? Anyway, it's all it's crazy. The fires are still going on out there, and it's highly irregular. Everything that's going on. There's a lot of people out there who are attempting to make this very political, and in weird ways too. There's lots of people who are yelling at people for talking about the corruption and the very clear premeditation that is happening here in California. The statistical irregularity of everything that's going on is just crazy. It's so fucking suspect. And there's so many layers to it. You'll have to dig into it yourself. And and already people are trying to call conspiracy on. I'm like, fuck you. I'm literally, I live out there. I'm not there right now. I'm in New York, working with a bunch of my friends. About to go back to my girl in a little bit on the 28th, and trying to get some things going to help before then. But it's crazy. There is a conversation. There are some real concerns. And, this thing of misinformation, when a conversation is being had and information is being sussed out and people are trying to figure some things out, engage in the conversation, don't just sit there and be like, oh, dig in yourself and see some different things, because so many things just sort of end up getting labeled this whole conversation topic of it being any sort of choices that have been made. But oh my God, there is a cascade of choices that have been made out in California. And just to give you a little bit of an idea, from the fact that we don't have any water, and things were put into place so that wouldn't be the case. And Gavin Newsom, and it's not about the fucking politicians. I don't care if he's a Republican or Democrat. It's just what he's done. To save this little fish or something was the excuse. They didn't take the water, but the water was important. The water was way more important, unfortunately, than these little fish. And I don't believe this little fish story to begin with. And then meanwhile, funding had been cut to the fire departments, so much so that they were using fire water bags that looked like handbags to fight the fire, because they didn't have enough hoses and stuff in some cases. And they didn't have water in so many of the hydrants because of the water situation. And, even things like somebody like me, somebody who's on the ground, somebody who's, girl is a city councilman, father is a city councilman. I have a lot of information on the inside of things. So when people accuse me of saying misinformation. I'm like, fuck you, misinformation. I happen to know that a drone of some kind took out one of the two firefighting. This is like a flying vehicle that the Canadians gave us to help fight fires. They're very like advanced equipment, and a drone randomly took out this fucking piece of equipment. What? What? And, you know, it's a murky territory to get into with the sort of land grab conversation, but there's all sorts of things that just went on in Hawaii that mirror this. And with Hawaii, it was like, oh, conspiracy theory. And Hawaii, you know, it didn't affect me as much. You know, I'm not sorry, Hawaiians. You know, I looked at it. I acknowledged that it was possible. You know, there wasn't really necessarily anything I could do about it. But here I am, you know, in California, and I might not be there at the moment, but, you know, it's my home most of the time. And I am like livid about what's going on and handlings of so many different things. And I really want to see, you know, feet held to the coals, not just on this, in North Carolina, Hawaii. Like, it is crazy what we're allowing to happen. And I think often the allowance of it is like a political thing. Nobody wants to speak badly about the people in their party who are responsible for the problems because it makes their party look bad. Guys, I mean, oh my God. The system can't work if we don't hold the people responsible when they make mistakes. So please, you know, just, you know, like seriously, viciously in whatever positive way, you know, shoot down those people who are trying to shoot down conversations about this, because, you know, I'm there and I'm telling you, there's all sorts of weird things happening. Arson and then other things. There's a picture going around, which is legit as far as like, I've looked into it, and it seems to be very much legit. And the fires are inside the houses, not outside the houses. There's a ton of weird things going on. And there's so many separate fires, and there's arsonists, and the ones that they found have been illegal immigrants. And, you know, oh God, it's not political. There's nothing political about it. It's just like, what is going on here? What is going on here? What is going on here? Looting. Oh my God, there's so much stuff. So much stuff. I'm really glad, actually, my love of my life's father has just been appointed to like a major position. He was out of it, and they pulled him back in, you know, at a crucial juncture. And goddamn, I'm so glad. I'm so fucking glad. He is made for politics in the best way. He is a good man who wants to see good things done in the world and with the system, and he really tries to do good. George Brightingham. I would vote for him. I've been very happy to know him and get to know him. He is the man that I hoped existed in the world, you know, and I hope there's more like him. I'm sure there are. And he'd been retired, and this situation just put him out of retirement, and now he's back into the fray. And I don't know exactly what he's involved in right now because I haven't spoken to him, but I'm very glad to see that he's back in, because I've been sort of encouraging him. He almost ran for another thing, and then he didn't for some reason. I think he was discouraged of a certain group of people that couldn't or wouldn't back him that had normally backed him, and he was sort of like, well, he sort of felt like insulted. But he's such a great man, and like, fuck them. Fuck those guys. You rule, George. Anyway, and anybody like you, anybody out there who's doing what George's doing, putting themselves on the line, and you know, giving out their fucking phone numbers, and you know, and actually trying to do good things for people and good things for the place where they live. Like, that's what George does. It's great. Makes me want to cry. We need more people like him. Anyway, Jesse Blaze at what am I? Jesse Blaze at jessesnider.com, I think. Is that what it is? Jesse Snider, jesseblaze.com. Jesse Blaze, Jesse. You know, I don't know what it is anymore. I don't always give it out. You know what? Fuck. For this one, I'll give out my personal email. If specifically, like, I'll remember what the email is for this thing. I check it. Specifically for if you want to help out with the LA fires, you can email me directly. It's jesseblaze@mac.com, because I'm an old man and I wouldn't change it. Anyway, yeah, that's all. that's all about that. All Your Favorite Band Sucks podcast still on hold for a minute as I figure out what I'm going to do to recapitulate, edit shows, or adjust. Like I said, we're held up on Spotify. It's really annoying because that show was doing really good. I think we were either approaching 500,000, over 500,000, or just under 500,000. One of those. I'm dyslexic, and I try not to like think too hard about numbers and stuff because it's like you can obsess over stuff like that, and I'm old enough to recognize that that's not worth it. So I will be doing my podcast on Friday. I got my first bit of pushback. I did last everything they don't want you to know on the LA fires, and they fucking YouTube gave me a strike, and I'm planning to fight it. I just haven't had a chance to because I was like sort of ridiculous. It's actively happening, and I wasn't saying that I knew anything. I was saying that people should look at it themselves and blah, blah, blah. But I was saying I was putting together a lot of larger pieces that are possible and that are in play, and I want to know specifically what they don't like hearing because I can verify from the CIA's own mouth the existence of all the things that I was talking about. So what not fact did I say? Because it was all facts. Anyway, that's available. That podcast in all sorts of places. It was only YouTube that gave me a strike, but I'm still like, fuck you, YouTube. I don't think we get a lot of listens from YouTube, honestly. Anyway, but yeah, still kicking ass on that. And I'll do something on Saturday. I don't know if I made a list of all the great shit that I saw during the holiday. But there was some good stuff. And I'm going to start trying to remember, and I'll write it down, and I'll be coming back around to give you some great things to think about. But right now and today, we're going to talk about Diamond's Comics distributor has just collapsed. They're filing for bankruptcy. Anybody in the know has known that this was on the table for a while. My good friend Digger has been telling me like they're going to fall any day, and I'd heard that from many people that they were on their last legs in a lot of ways. For those of you who don't know what Diamond's Comics distributor is, or more to the point was, they used to hold a monopoly in the comic book market, working with Marvel, DC, Image, and all the other independent publishers. And they were basically the one-stop direct source to all comic shops all across the country. And I believe they had gotten into some legal discussions about whether or not that was a monopoly or not, but it was deemed that it was such a small marketplace that it was okay for there to be a monopoly like this. Of course, because of their monopoly status, they were not always well liked by all of the distributors and whatnot. And it's just, this is really what I want to talk about today, about how sort of the shit rolls downhill and the way the publishers are treating the distributor ends up dictating how the distributor's treating the brick and mortar stores. And how the boss is treating the executive ends up being how the executive is treating the creative people, which is something you learn when you're a filmmaker or you're a comic book writer like me. I'm dealing with a producer, but then all of a sudden the executive tells the producer they can't hire me for whatever reason. I can remember one specific moment in time. I was supposed to be on this book with Sarah Litt was the editor. Shout out to Sarah. And this isn't Sarah's fault at all. Sarah's awesome. It was like a horror anthology, pretty sure. And there was, I think it was 8-page stories, and it was going to be maybe like double-sized, and she was planning on, I don't know, a half a dozen different creative people working on this thing. I was sort of surprised by the pick that she picked. She picked this thing like the Saint of the Subway, which was this kind of hulking creature that was made of lots of dead workers, subway people who had been working on the subway during a collapse. And now if you played this song, it would summon this like beast that was strong enough to put you through the turnstile in the New York City it's New York City subway. The turnstile where it's like fingers going through each other. I just had this like gruesome visual of like I want to like the Hulk's gonna like push somebody through this. It would be awful way to die. And Sarah liked that. Shout out to Sarah. Sarah's cool. Because I had sent some more like, it was for Vertigo, so I'd sent some more like intellectual sort of horror sort of things. But she picked that one. And I was excited. I was just waiting for a little while. I'd sent a bunch of pitches, and I was talking to her for a while, and we'd become friends. And just waiting. And then one day, I know Sarah was devastated to tell me that I'm pretty sure it was Karen Berger, who was the head of DC Vertigo at the time, had told her that she needed to hire a list of people for the anthology that she had already selected. And she wasn't going to be able to hire any of the people that she had promised she was going to be working with. These people had put together pitches. She had a whole thing. She was ready to go. Sorry. You're not creatively executing that project. These are the people you're going to be working with. So that's just happening all of the time. All of the time. And it's a shame because, my brother Cody, he got dicked around in the film industry for forever. And, I can't give any good specific stories with him other than the one specific long dog and pony fucking show. What was that? Shaggy Dog story. Which is my brother, the film, my brother's made 2 short films that have won a lot of awards and film festivals. One of them is called All That Remains. It's actually, I'm very proud to say, based on a comic book that me and Steve Kurth had created called D for Dementia, but he released it as a short called All That Remains. It's fucking beautiful. I'm so proud of him. It was based on a lot of the ideas that I told him, and he just made his own script and ended up helping him a little bit with the narration, just writing. We wrote it together just to like tighten it up or whatever at the end, because he really liked the narration in the comic and he wanted it to, to kind of fit it to the film. And that film is awesome. It's a little long and they had some trouble getting it into as many film festivals as they want, but it's incredible. I think they would have won so many more awards if the length wasn't a problem. He really just elevated the hell out of the material. I mean, we had a good idea and stuff, but I mean, I hadn't developed it that far. So, I just shared some ideas with my brother, and then he turned it into this beautiful short film. I mean, it's incredible. It was like one of the greatest honors anybody's ever done me in my life, because it's incredible. So I'm just like, I have something to do with that. When somebody else makes you look really good, you're like, geez, I'm with him. And humble, just so great. So after that short film, my brother made a movie called Fool's Day. It's co-written by my brother Shane and directed by my brother Cody. And they won, all the fucking short film festival categories, everything. I mean, just like they really swept things in so many ways. It's a very winning sort of short film. It's been called the greatest short film ever made, and it may well be. It's called, like I said, it's called Fool's Day. You can look these up. All That Remains and Fool's Day, Cody Blue Snider. If you type those in, I really highly recommend them. Homework, as I used to say. Go check them out. Respect my brother. He's brilliant. Brilliant, and a lovely man too. Lovely man with a lovely wife. Shout out to Tanya. So Cody's film Fool's Day was, I might get some of the studio's names wrong if I try to grab them, but I think it was Miramax or something like that. One of the big studios bought up the movie. They want to make it a feature. Shane and Cody worked hard on a feature version. The feature version, the studio found ultimately too envelope pushing and offensive on a couple different levels, made them rewrite it a bunch of ways that were devastating to them. And they kept on keeping on though, because the studio was doing it up big, and they had from basically the very beginning, Margot Robbie, as you might know as Harley Quinn and Barbie, blah blah blah. She was attached as in a pretty big part. It was, well, I would say it's a bit part, but it's a major bit part that was important to the story. They, for some reason, struggled to find a leading man for the project forever. Just, you know, and they would have people come back around and be like, oh, I can do it now. But like the schedule wasn't working, or, you know, I forget all the ins and outs. But I mean, I watched this happen for 8 years. What had been called, you know, and this isn't like my family talking and mom going, it's the greatest short film ever made. But like in the film industry, you know, Cody was being lauded, and he got dicked around for 8 years. And there was plenty of other dicking. You know, as he was waiting, he was trying to get other things going, and all these other things going would keep, you know, sort of falling, you know, through the wayside. And there was another thing that ended up happening, which I think I did actually talk about, where he just sort of stood up for himself one day with some people who were close to him, and they were just kind of dancing around this, like, yes, he's like, I don't understand, you know, why we're not doing it, you know, like if it's really all that you say, you know. And when he pressed him to the coals, they said because he's a straight white guy, and he wasn't popular, you know. And I think maybe there might be a correction of that going on in some fashion right now. But holy crap, you know, that is a deflating and to be thought of. My brother's an artist and he's brilliant. It's a shame, you know, you guys have been missing out. And it's like I've watched a decade of a brilliant filmmaker's career go by without him being able to do what he's clearly ready to do. He's been clearly ready to do for a fucking decade. But the system, the tippy top, isn't even really looking at the bottom part. They don't care. You know, there's a tippy top of all these executives who have these deals on the table with Cody or anybody else, and bosses have bosses. There's a great, I don't remember what the movie was, and the movie kind of sucked, but there was this thing where the boss was just fucking terrible, but the boss's boss was even more terrible, and the boss's boss's boss was even more terrible than that, and they showed that later, and that was great, you know, like, because that's really how it goes. It's just like people cracking whips on each other in this system. And this sort of Marvel Comics, DC Comics, all these comic book companies, especially mainly the big ones. The Diamond would push around smaller companies, but Marvel and DC and whatnot, you know, like essentially they would threaten to go other places, you know, and whatnot. So they would kind of get what they wanted a little bit, and they, especially when they became film darlings or whatever, they started to have some amount of control. Now, the system has been collapsing for, I want to say, like a decade. Because a lot of the, for lack of a better word, woke or DEI sort of agenda that took over Hollywood, and of course, you know, if you've heard me speak about this before, you know, this is really sort of an execution problem. DEI isn't really a problem. You know, you don't do it and also go fuck white guys and make all the women a cookie cutter thing and make everybody their name of their nationality and not much more than that. And like, you know, like there's just so much that's gone wrong in this thing, this modern entertainment world that is a disservice to the DEI initiative on so many levels, and is just a disservice to storytelling and so many different things. And the rejection of it by the audience has been happening for a very long time now. So in comics and film and TV, you know, I'm going to sort of show you like this trickle down theory. These things happened first to the geek community that later happened, I feel, very much so to Republicans and any sort of dissenting opinion. You know, like I wasn't a Republican, but I was a conspiracy theorist as far as a lot of people were concerned, even though I keep getting proven right. And I mean, I don't know how many fucking conspiracies I've got left that haven't been fucking admitted to one way or another. You know, and it's just so crazy, right? What is a person who goes 10 years of their life being made to feel like they're a conspiracy theorist, whilst 10 years later, all the things that they were told they were crazy for trying to make people understand were credibly real are widely accepted by freaking most people. And so many things, with aliens, and it's just like, because I keep kicking myself. Ugh, I'm such a fucking idiot. I gotta listen to myself. So in the new year, that's the listen to myself. I'm no more of this conspiracy theorist bullshit. Yeah, I'm a conspiracy theorist. I couldn't be nearest to the fucking truth. And that's the truth. If you're not digging beyond what people are saying when they're being flouty, you're unfortunately a moron. And I understand, because I used to be a moron, and I'm an idealist, and I just thought everybody was kind of telling the truth, kind of thing. And then just a few books that just showed me a different world, and that the systems were being manipulated. And then I just kept digging into that, and you see. And you'll see, if you dig into this subject, I'm not a good person to come and tell you all the little ins and outs of why Diamond Comics Distributors fell and all this stuff. But plenty of people have broken it down. And I'll give you sort of the main tenets. And now, at a certain point, Marvel or DC, I think it was maybe Marvel, they left for brighter pastures. They, I think, made a deal with Penguin, and that eroded some of their strength. But a lot of their erosion of their strength has been the erosion of the comics market itself. Okay? And so many people in the comic book world want to deny this. But one, in comics, there is like a bottom cushion of speculators who will sort of buy anything just in case. I have a friend who claims that he's never lost money by going out and buying every single number one issue at face value at any point in time. Every number one appreciates to some degree, especially because the existence of this market and people like him. So it's like this snake that feeds itself, right? And this is a part of comics, this speculator market. And the speculator market is easy to manipulate. Variant covers and limiting variant covers, very limited things. You can only get this cover if you buy, say, 200 copies of this. So they can inflate numbers for books and things like that without having to do anything of merit on the inside of the book to get the audience or to get the orders. So there's a lot of manipulation in comics, and that's been going on a little bit for all time. However, it's gotten more and more precise in how they've been manipulating so many different things. And they've done this as the creative direction of the company has been pointed, essentially, for lack of a better word, in a DEI sort of direction that the audience has not responded to. This Miss Marvel Kamala Khan character has existed in the comics for I don't know, maybe even like 3 decades, 2.5 decades. I don't know. She's been around for a minute. She's never exactly worked. And the only reason why she hasn't worked, because she actually works as a concept, but the reason why she hasn't worked is because they haven't made Captain Marvel work. Captain Marvel was originally Miss Marvel. Miss Marvel was Miss Marvel to Captain Marvel, who was Captain Marvel, who was this blonde-haired guy. In the movies, they erased him from history. He's sort of famous in comics. I love Captain Marvel. I'm a little bit more familiar with his son, I think it is, Genus Vell, who is in the Peter David Captain Marvel run, Criss Cross. I really enjoy those comics. There were some favorites of mine at the time. But I have a lot of love for the Captain Marvel concept. And it's been a boy for me when I've read it. But I've also, like I said, I love the Captain Marvel concept. I've also read a ton of Miss Marvel and a ton of Captain Marvel. And Captain Marvel was always this sort of like beautiful, slightly militant, tough chick. You know, she was kind of like a hot Jon Stewart a little bit. She had real powers. She could really kick some ass. And she respected the chain of command. She respected the Superman of the group and the Batman of the group and the Wonder Woman of the group. And ultimately, there was nothing to not like about that. But then they tried to make her the Wonder Woman of the group, and they made her Captain Marvel. And I'll say the Miss Marvel stuff is probably better than the Captain Marvel stuff. Granted, I didn't read every bit of Captain Marvel. And at a certain point, while I was reading, I did read every bit of Captain because I was morbidly curious, and they were okay. They weren't terrible. It just wasn't great. But some of the things that they ended up doing with her in like the larger Marvel universe, let's just say, like there's a Civil War 2. And essentially, Captain Marvel becomes like a rat, or whatever you want to call it, going after her own friends, rounding up her own friends and locking them up. And Miss Marvel, who, again, is a great concept. She's this Captain Marvel fangirl, except they couldn't really get Captain Marvel over the way they wanted to. You know, they were trying very hard, but they didn't quite give her any, like, I thought about this a while ago. I think I talked about it on the show. I was saying it would have been really cool if she went out into space and they did something that was the equivalent of the, is it like the seven things of Hercules? You know, he fights this giant lion, and, like, you know, she could go out and fight a space lion, you know. But, like, you know, she did something similar where she put herself through a measure of obstacles to prove to herself her worthiness for the title of Captain Marvel. That could be really cool. And at the same time, you know, you sort of build a threat right up under her nose. She doesn't even know it's there, and, like, you know, then you get something going from there. That, you know, that could have been great. But they didn't do anything like that. It was a lot of, like, trying to show us how cool she was by this little girl really loves Captain Marvel. Look how cool Captain Marvel is. But it's like not little girls in the real world. You know, it's little girls in the comic book. They did a similar thing with Black Panther at a certain point. It was weird. This dude, Reginald Hudlin, came in to write the thing. He's got some sort of link to, I think it's BET or whatever. And his first arc was pretty good. I think probably he had some help on it and some editing. Because everything after that was like really ham-fisted and overwritten. And in particular, there was a glaring error on his part. He kept doing that thing where the little girl shows up and tells us how awesome Black Panther is. Except instead of a little girl, it was everybody in the Marvel Universe who was of any significance, especially the black people. And eventually, like I didn't read that far because I really got annoyed because he kept basically he's going Black Panther is cool and of somewhat of significance, and I'm reading Black Panther. Black Panther is one of my favorite characters, and I don't see him as fucking black. You know, he's a king. He's a king and he's an Avenger. The Avenger's responsibility is to save the whole world. The king's responsibility is to look out for his kingdom first, and he's always got to, like, you know, kind of find a balance in those two things, and I think that's wonderful, and it's really great character building and character storytelling, and it just makes him after every story ends, you just feel like he's so rich. What a rich character he is. Look at all of the interesting things he's been through. Look at what he's had to grown from. Look at what he's had to overcome with his intellect, being of calm mind, rational. Love Black Panther. So when you're reading a comic and it seems like the comic book writer is screaming for you to respect the character that you already respect, like you just like are totally it's like leave this shit up for the interviews. You know, I mean, he could have had Luke Cage show up and offer respect to Black Panther stuff, but it'd be literally like, you know, I can't believe I'm hanging out with the Black Panther right. You're like, it was just a bit over the top. Across the board, like if you go read it yourself, you'll see a pattern of him just sort of like aggrandizing the Black Panther by telling us how big of a deal he is instead of showing us, which is I grew up reading Christopher Priest's Black Panther run. Oh, Black Panther's awesome. He's mysterious. He's cool. And he's smart. And he's got high technology. And fuck yeah, man. I love Black Panther. So it's like, you don't need to double down all this shit. You don't need to freaking convince me of this stuff. So Captain Marvel was being written a lot like that. And what she was being given to do wasn't exactly big deal, whatever, because it was almost like she was on this publicity tour. And I think that was even part of some of her storyline at some point, where like she needed a publicist and like that stuff. Oh my God. Bringing that superficial reality of these publicists and things like that into the lives of these superheroes, that is a recipe for disaster in terms of how people are seeing them and sort of what they represent and the ideal and everything. And also, they were having her show up as like a girlfriend of other superheroes in other books. I think she was showing up and chatting with, in an R-rated book, but it was still a lot of gossipy girl kind of bullshit that made her just seem like a bit of a militant woman in not any sort of, like, I really like tough ladies. But, there's a difference between people who are sort of that unreasonable energy, who are carrying that thing. And that's where, especially then, when, like, really like confirmed when all of a sudden in Civil War II, they had her make that turn against her friends, and then ended up with Miss Marvel being like this little like mini soldier as well, poisoned of the mind. So I mean, like, they made her a bad guy in a bad way, and nothing was ever really done to rectify that either. And still, she hasn't really been given any great stories. So Captain Marvel was the first one. And then they put her on the big screen, and one of the biggest graphic novels of all time was The Death of Captain Marvel, which was the original Captain Marvel. I think it's in the 70s. If they had adapted that and had it end with possibility of Captain Marvel will return, but it's going to be that would have been amazing. And she could have been Miss Marvel in the film, and then by the end of it, the reins are passed to her. That would have been cool. That would have set us up. That would have made a big deal. People would have cared about that. It would have been honoring the classics. But right out of the gate, they got rid of all that stuff when they made the movie. So, okay, continuing the trend of muddying the water. They were trying to make Captain Marvel work in the comics. They never got her across the plate as Captain Marvel. Still, she worked best when she was Warbird and Miss Marvel and the militant sidekick on the Avengers, but they decided to introduce her in a solo film first, even though they never really got the greatest solo stories out of her yet. So they didn't even give it time to gestate and time for a classic Carol Danvers Miss Marvel story to be told. There aren't really any. Except for maybe some where she's a side character. There's some good Avengers stuff where she was in there or whatever. That's not like bogged down by her being Captain Marvel, but it definitely did over time, because then they were pushing for her in a leadership role, and they ended up just making her very overbearing for the reader. In comics, there's a very traditional trajectory for characters. The audience asks for more of them. And, as more is given, and the audience sort of like will suss out who they like, Gambit and Wolverine and Deadpool, the audience kept going, give us more of that. Oh, we like that. We like that. That's cool. Do more of that. And it goes like that. And if you don't get the audience to do it, just rushing ahead and pretending like you succeeded, making the universe of the Marvel Universe decide, oh, well, we like her. Well, that's kind of skipping a beat, right? So the audience hasn't been on board since the beginning of Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel change. And first, I will say, we weren't exactly not on board for Miss Marvel, even though she was an odd one. She just has she would kind of stretch, but her stretching didn't really look like stretching. She looked like she was like fat in like a really weird way, like her body parts would get really fat. She was an Inhuman that looked up to Captain Marvel, she was strange. There was a lot of strange things about Captain Marvel, and there still has been because they keep kind of shifting her around. The thing that made the most sense about Miss Marvel, was that she looked up to Captain Marvel. And that was cool. But because Captain Marvel didn't really get with the audience yet, it didn't play. And it never happened. And then Miss Marvel kept getting shifted around in different ways, and they keep trying to make these concepts work. They've actually put Miss Marvel in a number of different books. There's one place where she has worked pretty good. There's a little book called The Champions, which has kind of made me sad because The Champions is something that they could do with that concept since it's been introduced. I think actually the Young Avengers movie I was thinking is now going to be a Champions movie, which is fine. Champions, less people know, less people will be upset. Young Avengers were great. I'm upset that there's no Young Avengers film. That would have been awesome. The Young Avengers trade paperback, you could get it written by Alan Heinberg, drawn by Jim Chang. It's fucking awesome. But the Champions was a whole bunch of like younger tier heroes that they had made at the time, and that was fun and good enough and a cool place for her to be. But this Champions movie they're going to make, it's not going to be very much like the Champions comics that other people might have read and liked. And I've read a couple of those and they were cute. They did an initiative where they did a whole bunch of mantle swapping at once. Now, they had previously swapped the Captain America mantle and given it to Bucky, and now they were giving it to Sam Wilson, the Falcon. And again, this wasn't exactly a idea that was not appreciated by the audience. Just like Miss Marvel becoming Captain Marvel made a certain amount of sense, and Miss Marvel's position made a certain amount of sense. This made a certain amount of sense. So the audience was kind of okay with that. But at the same time, they made a whole bunch of other changes. Thor became Jane Foster, and I don't remember all of the shifts that happened. That might have been when they made Laura, the X-23, into Wolverine. But there was a whole bunch of different ones at the time. And a major sort of directive shift at the company. DC did some similar things, starting in the New 52, where they were trying to be progressive in some subtle ways, and then continued to do that. I mean, subtle ways. The biggest one was Cyborg being switched to the Justice League, which was fucking weird as fuck. I don't know why they didn't use Jon Stewart as their person of color. Cyborg was completely already associated through the cartoon and the comic books for ages with the Teen Titans. It was a very weird choice. But again, they've been making weird choices, okay? And these choices have started in the comics, especially as the film thing has become more real as an important piece of the puzzle. And I think that's why Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel became one of the biggest things. The future, to be a progressive company, all these things. So they have been going super progressive. At a certain point in the X-Men, they did something awesome with Jonathan Hickman that would have been really cool for like a singular storyline, or to have gone for a moment, but had the proper ramifications for what it really was. But Jonathan Hickman bailed out of this thing, and what it ended up becoming was sort of a glorification of an idea of like, normal society can die for all we care. And that's not the way. I'm a weirdo, and but I don't think that normal people should die. I think that's lame. And I think, it's like all these wonderful weirdos, like we have things to offer to all the normal people, like, because we're weird. And, and we're supposed to be together. And, but there was, they did a sort of vegan comic, like a plants and animal rights comic that was like vicious on mankind in a pretty dark way, because it wasn't seeming to think that what it was doing was really all that dark or anything, and it wasn't sort of presenting it with the proper measure. of reality that like what was being on display. And there was a ton of things, a ton of choices that were made during this time that really turned off the audience over a long period of time. And I mean, there's been so many different things, from the gender swaps and race swaps, and people being forced into positions of leadership, and books being filled out with characters that people aren't particularly interested in. And this is at Marvel and DC, over time. And now something was happening as this was happening, and well, beyond the fact that the films were using this as their hey, look, yeah, it's been done in the comics. Well, it's been done in the comics unsuccessfully. We didn't care for that. Ironheart never exactly went over with people too well. She might have worked with the Champions okay, but that was not considered a home run. There's a number of concepts that are being pushed forward right now that were not considered home runs, and I'm being like kind by saying that they weren't home runs. They were considered bad. Not the Jason Aaron's Thor, Lady Thor. That run was pretty cool. There was some cool things. It was kind of a soft descent into madness, where they got to this point where the audience started tuning out. They started paying less to their creative people, and now they've got a crop of people who are a lot of, I feel, ideologues who have not studied writing enough, and they've studied like politics more, and you see and hear their politics and just preaching and so many things, but they don't tell dramatic stories anymore, either of these companies. And a lot of the artwork isn't so great anymore because they're hiring a lot of cheaper people, because other people are going to video game companies and other places there. And now these films have been taking these failed concepts that were already tested intellectually on the audience. The audience didn't like them. Now they're putting them up on the screen, and the audience is not liking them. The merchandise has been falling off a cliff. I talk about this all the time. I'm a toy guy. If you want to get good deals on your toys, you need to know when to buy them. Do you buy it as soon as it comes out when it's like cost? Or do you wait because you know that nobody's going to buy it, and 2 years from now or a year from now you can get it half off, or you can get it for some discount? Or do you know that if you wait to buy it, it's going to be expensive? Better buy it now, right? So in order to be somebody who participates in that market, you have to be able to participate the market a little bit so that you know what's going on, so that you because fool me once, I tried to get this, but you figure it out. And people like my friend Aaron Sparrow, shout out to Aaron Sparrow, who is he was a buyer for a company, internet company called Toy Rocket for a while. He's applied for a company called Mighty Pins, or My D Pins. And in order to be a buyer for a store, you need to know, you don't want to order too many and then you're sitting on them and, oh, fuck, it cost my boss a whole bunch of money. In reality, Aaron was making people so much money because he was a fan, he was a toy guy, and he, would kind of suss out how much they could do. Occasionally he'd be wrong. He'd try to get his hands on more, but generally speaking, he was never holding on to anything. And he would be the guy who got like enough to actually satisfy the market when other people didn't order enough because they didn't think anything of it. But now, go call Mighty Pins. They've got it. Go call, Toy Rocket. And so that's a really big, important thing, this toy market piece of it. Because the toy market really represents the next level of the thing. You could call it simply idolatry, merchandise, toys, posters, the worship of the arts. And that is a next level of dedication to the intellectual property, for lack of a better word. Marvel, DC, Star Wars, Star Trek, all these companies, they have a dedicated fan base who is paying attention to everything because they might want to get that statue. They might want to get that toy. They're going to want to see. They're going to want to read it. Those fans are worth their fucking weight in gold. Those fans are why Disney paid billions of dollars for Star Wars and Marvel. Those fans buy things. Shirts, bowls. I mean, everything. Have you seen all the shit that's got fucking Marvel logos on it and whatnot? And you remember the time just like 6 years ago where we were really excited about that because it still represented something great. We were all fucking enjoying the hell out of it. This is so wonderful. Heroes kicking ass. And then over the course of the past like 6 years or something, all of the goodwill that was there with, Avengers Endgame was over. And there has been little bubbles of success here, but there hasn't been really much of anything. And what has been happening is a collapse. And this collapse was so fucking obvious. It's been so obvious for so long. I said at the beginning, I'm not going to shut my mouth. I've known this stuff for so long. Me and Aaron, we've been going on as guests of various live streams and podcasts, like shout out to Thinking Critical on YouTube, and talking about they are dying. Star Wars is dying. Marvel is dying. Their merchandise sales are going down. You might have noticed something about Marvel. There haven't been a lot of waves anymore. Now it's 2-packs and retro carded whatevers and extra sized individual packed figures. But the waves, there's been a lot less waves. What? Well, a shitload of waves, a lot of them based on films, just fucking died at retail this past bunch of years. They're hurting their brand so badly, it's hurting all of their stuff. With Marvel, the classic stuff is still hanging on to a certain degree, but it is affecting it. With Star Wars, it's affecting it badly. And a lot of the brands are really being affected. The fan that cares the most to buy the things that is paying the most attention is leaving. And they've been leaving slow and steady for a long time. But it was obvious enough right from the beginning. It's only gotten worse and simply really harder for them to hide. The whole comic book industry has been trying to claim that it's healthy and it's never been healthier and look at all these great things and we're Penguin books and all this shit. No, it's not. The audience who loves these things and has been buying these things for years and has been telling other people to read them too. We're reading back issues. We're done. There's a certain amount of people still reading a certain amount of something. And there are some people who have come up in this current iteration of the comics that don't have any idea about the history of any of these books and just... But there used to really be a care for maintaining the continuity and handling these characters the right way, and it went out the window over the past 10 years. And the audience has just had it up to here. Things like turning Captain America into a secret agent of Hydra, essentially giving in to a lot of silly political things at the time. Superman, making him apologize in so many ways for, representing the American way. Captain America, they've done similar things with sort of like stories that were designed, and Black Panther stories that have been sort of designed to shame America and things like this. It's really... True art, should never be so ham-fisted. If there's something to say negative about America, and I believe a lot of Captain America's comic books have said those things before, you say them in an artful way that hopefully says a lot more than just that. And if it's written organically and truthfully, it always will. But there's a real ham-fisted approach to the way these things go. And as somebody who's worked in the comic book industry and has worked in so much of the entertainment industry in various capacities for so long, I could tell you what tends to happen. And I mean, 99% of the time, it's not brilliant creative people who have spent so much time thinking of something, bringing some brilliant thing to the place. It is so often editors going, I need this. Twilight is big right now. What else could I find like that? This is, people like horror. What else could I find like that? It's a very superficial sort of way of approaching things. And when you go, let's handle this truth, justice, and the American way thing that I see people criticizing Superman about online. Well, that tends to imbalance the way the art is approached. You know, you can get brilliant people to get an assignment like this. You know, like if somebody gave me that assignment, I think I would have written something that could have been really powerful. Granted, they probably wouldn't have let me write it the way that I would want to write it. But still, even doing it the way that they would want to do it, I could probably still pull away something that was meaningful and loaded with impact and wouldn't inflame any part of the audience because it was respectful and cool. But the audience has been feeling very disrespected by some of the execution of some of these really ham-fisted ideas designed to auto-correct and liberalize, I guess, sanitize some of the whitewashing that they feel is over comics. You know, it's very interesting to me. Very interesting, too, because, I never saw Superman as a white guy because he's an alien. I remember, the first time that was, pointed out to me, I was like, huh? Touché. I suppose he does look white, and unfortunately this thing of look white and there's so many ways that some of these marginalized races, sexes, whatever, could have been pushed more to the forefront in good ways. I'm in comics, I've been watching it, I've tried to pitch some things here or there that I felt were important. There was a paraplegic character that I pitched right after they took Barbara out of the chair, because I loved her being in the chair, because I loved that people dealing with that situation had a hero that really defined them, and I was very not defined them, but defined their personal struggle and was doing something with it, doing something great with it. I just thought that was a wonderful thing to be in existence. Just like a blind superhero, and the blind community loved that. The pitch never, went down. Again, like I said, you don't bring them good ideas. They are looking for ideas. If that was their idea and they brought it to me, they might have gone for it, but it doesn't go the other way. So they've completely stopped at a certain point, and it was a slow wave over the course of the whole line of all the books, because it took a while for every editorial house to be fully sort of afflicted. But eventually all of Marvel and all of DC started to come from a similar place. Sometimes you can still get some great stories that are almost completely unaffected by this, even if they are a little bit, just because they're written by wonderful people. I've come in to read a bunch of Jeff Johns stuff and some Christopher Priest things and some other things, and there's been some great things in the midst of a lot of generally not great material. And they've to get back to this variant cover thing, another thing that they've done is they've relied on sort of branding. Batman is a brand where they can always sell a certain amount of whatever. Well, he's in everything, and he's got 60 books at once. It's just constant Batman, 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 Batman. Whatever is working, they push that button a bazillion times until you stop accepting. Whatever is working, they will take advantage of. And I don't put it past a lot of these companies that they are hiding overprints of super, super limited covers that they are charging these comic book stores tons of money to get their hands on. I believe that they have deals with various online distributors to give those extra covers to those companies so that they can sell them at those inflated prices, and they split profits on these expensive covers. I'm not sure it's ever been proven or whatever. There's so many interesting things that have gone on in the major publishing world and the mafia's involvement and whatnot. But within this world, there's the speculation and the speculative world. There's a lot of money to be made, kind of playing with the numbers and playing with a lot of things. So this is happening all the time, and things like this more and more and more as they haven't been able to make as much off the audience because the audience isn't showing up. They're trying to make more off of the stores that are selling the stuff, and they're trying to make more through the back end and more through various ways of finagling this stuff. It's been going on for forever. There's a similar thing going on right now. Most people are on their ass right now, myself included. Financially, I'm just barely hanging on, taking care of my family. I've got two homes, kind of thing, because it's me and then my ex-wife and the kids. So I'm like, there's twice as many sort of expenses for me most of the time, and it's really, really hard. And I'm not necessarily like running around telling everybody that, but I can admit it in this moment to make this point. Just like and there's nothing to be ashamed of. It goes back and forth. I know I'm a billionaire and I have all the money that I need right now, and I've got more money coming in, so everything's going on great. Don't worry about me. But it's been tough. Things have been tough, and people are making and I guess I'm probably comfortable saying that too, because I know that everything's like I've had a little bit of money come in, and I'm doing good, and I need more to come in, of course, but I believe everything's just lining up and things are coming out, so I feel like I'm through the storm. But a lot of people are still in the storm. We're in a financial quagmire in so many different ways. And of course that's affecting things. The books aren't good, and I don't have a lot of money. And the toys, why do I want to buy toys, and why do I want to go see the movies? And if the books weren't good that this was based on, and these characters, I don't like these characters, why do I want to watch a TV show based on that? What? And your audience is fucking ghosts, man. All of the goodwill that, Star Wars in particular, the Skeleton Crew, and it's like people are just done. I'm going to watch Andor because I was a big fan of the first season of Andor, and I'm sure it's gotten around to some people that like Andor was pretty good, the first season. I'm curious, are people going to show up and watch the second season enthusiastically? They have been basically saying no to everything Star Wars, and Skeleton Crew apparently is pretty good, and nobody watched it. I watched like the first episode. It was all right. I was going to watch some more, but just haven't had a chance. So yeah, man, I don't know. To wrap it up, I'll just say this all could have been avoided. Similar to how people weren't listening to Jesse, or wanted to argue with me when I was trying to tell them about, some conspiracy theories that are now facts. 10 years ago, let's say, 10 years ago too, people like me and Aaron were going, yo, dude, the sky is falling. They need to make some really major shifts here at the foundations, or they're going to fuck this all up. They could either guide the films into a beautiful future, or the films are just going to be basing shit on nothing good that anybody liked and trying to swing for the fences, but with an audience that isn't really exactly passionate about any of that stuff. Really low chance to succeed with those odds. And we're people who want to see it succeed. So, we're seeing the trajectory. We're like, merch is going down. They're losing the audience. I didn't like that stuff either. I'm a part of the audience. It's not just me. Oh shit. Sales are going down. Oh shit. I see the directory. They announced Captain Marvel. Oh shit, they still haven't gotten Captain Marvel right. Oh shit. It's like we've been watching them head for the iceberg, trying to say this is the thing. And a lot of people along the way have been shouting down the less articulate. Some people have tried to shout me down too, but usually I make my points articulately enough that people must admit that there's truth to what I'm saying. But I try to talk really precisely so that we're not having a fucking argument, which is good advice to you. Talk precisely, no argument. But this tone deaf, not la, you guys are just haters attitude that Hollywood and the comic book industry has taken on, the entertainment industry has taken on, is crazy. It's tone deaf. And then they started calling them sexist and racist, and they're completely out of line and off base. And then I watched them do it to the Republicans, and I started to realize, hey, wait a second, this is like a weird diversion tactic to like take the pressure off the fact that we're failing at what we're trying to do. But unfortunately, when you're ideologically driven and not artistically driven, not trying to make the best art that you can for the audience, when you're not aiming to please the audience, you've lost everything. And that's how we got here, to this place of Diamond Comic Distributors no more. I wonder what that's going to mean for the comic book industry as a whole moving forward. It'll be really interesting to see. I do my books through Kickstarter, so my company lives on. Hopefully it'll mean that more people are turning to Kickstarter to check out books. Right now, if you go there, you can go check out the Sugar and Bones page. We haven't launched yet, but Sugar and Bones magazine, where basically heavy metal meets kind of like a Maxim for creative people, with some picture spreads, but a lot of comics and articles and just creative do-it-yourself or how-to kind of things to help you in your life, being a creative person, working in this world, making the world a better place through artistic expression. That's what I hope you're doing. Anyway, I hope you'll join me on Saturday for the next episode of Coolest Geek with some sort of cool pick. I don't know what I'm doing it on yet. I haven't looked at my list, but I have a ton of things that I want to share with you guys. The list of coolest picks and coolest classics that I can do fucking goes on forever. But anyway, I love you. Thank you so much for listening this long and being with me today here on this episode. And Care Bear stare to all of you guys who may be dealing with the LA fires or maybe dealing with anything difficult in North Carolina or Hawaii. If you're out there and you're going through any pain, I've dealt with too much pain in my life not to know that I don't wish it upon anybody. And Care Bear stare. I hope you get a little healing from hearing my voice and talking about some things that we love. Yeah, I hope you join me again next Wednesday, where I hope I'll make it something really, really positive on another fucking awesome episode of The Coolest Geek Alive. Later. You've been listening to Coolest Geek Alive with me, your host, Jesse Blaze Snider. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for more excellent geek culture content. Thanks for listening.
It's my favorite part! Isn't it heavy? I played that! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Coolest alive! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Stay with your tribe! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Revenge of the Geeks! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Week after weeks! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Laughing with you! It's gonna be fucking awesome! And crying sometimes too! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Spelling it out! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Making you shout! It's gonna be fucking awesome. Talking some shit. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Living your shit. My voice is gonna be fucking awesome. Food in our mouth. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Get in the mouth. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Tell all your friends. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Call right or text. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Raising the bar. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Straight to the stars. It's gonna be fucking awesome. It's starting soon. Straight to the top. Awesome. Passing the moon. It's gonna be fucking awesome. On with the show. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Ready, set, go. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Fucking awesome. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Just wait. You'll see. You'll all see.
You'll all see. The podcast playground. Hooray!